It's in my heart, and baby, down in my soul. You, baby, you can't take it no more. No, I know I'm walking out that door, the way it treated me too many times before. Right there with you. I know I gotta keep you by my side today I die. Cause baby, ecstasy is in my hand. Oh, when I'm holding yours in mine and walking in the sand. Oh, baby, you know it's fine. Oh, now you done and piss me off. You ain't done something you shouldn't have done. Baby, I'm mad. I'm going on, I'm going on.
They should just replace the Washington Monument with one of black marble if they're going to keep it up. Oh. I think I hurt somebody's feelings. Good morning, Pedro. How are you today, sir? I am not doing too well myself. I got a fucking headache like a son of a bitch. My kids get to school rather early, so I have to get up rather early. And I go to sleep, well, I can't even say I go to sleep late. I go to sleep rather early. Usually. Last night, I actually went to sleep around 11 o'clock at night. And that big change for me. So that means I got a total of 5 hours of sleep. That's not bad. Not bad. Most I've had for a long time. But at this point, that's the amount of sleep that you don't want to get, because at this point, my body just wants more sleep. So we're doing the coffee thing. Yeah, we got some interesting developments, I should say. um, is the microphone sounds okay? Everything is working okay? Notice I have both the cameras up. Gonna go through some headlines and stuff. Maybe watch some news. There's an ongoing problem that will not get solved, apparently, unless I do this. Okay, so, regardless of whether or not you think I have an entertaining broadcast, or whether or not you find it hard to follow, like, none of that shit matters. Do you want to save the fucking world or not? Grow up. Regardless of what you think of me personally, I don't care. The fact is, there are things that all of you get wrong on a daily basis. Okay? And there's some smart people like Rachel Maddow who at least know when they're getting things wrong, and know when they don't know something. And like, she's adorable when she like finally comes to like the end of her quest, and she's like, find out the rest of this. It's like, it's cute as shit. She's like my wife says over and over again, can we adopt her? I love her. Like, no, I don't think she's up for adoption, dear. That's not, a thing. I think it'd be like, you're awesome. Can we take care of you now? For one, we're not like, how do you put this? Rich royalty anymore. You can't just go say, "Oh, you belong to us now. You will come and live in our court." It's that it doesn't work that way, Your Highness. Anyways. But I forgot what the fuck I was even starting to talk about. There's at least the tangent. I remember the main point of what I was trying to say, because every single day, little tiny things that the news media get wrong amount to a group psychosis. Okay? And yeah, I know, crazy Jesus guy telling you, you're crazy. Well, I've fucking proven it over and over again, haven't I? So, things like Bannon and Trump in some way being adversarial. You understand? They're practically two people with equal rank. If anything, Bannon may be Trump's handler. I think it's probably somebody more in the background that's actually Trump handler for a while. I theorized it. I mean, standard procedure for the KGB was what they went with. A guy like Trump, any guy like Trump, standard procedure for a guy like Trump, it would be his wife. It would be Melania. And it can't be a coincidence that we were all kind of, and we are consistently told to think that Melania is some sort of tempering voice. Oh, she's nice. Oh, she wants to stop the bullying. And then, of course, where the fuck has she been since the Russia thing got in the spotlight? Like, where? Oh, man. She go back to Russia? Like, but anyway. So, Bannon's involvement with Breitbart, I think, goes back longer than they say it does, is my operating theory. And basically, his connection to this whole thing is the same as Kellyanne Conway's. They've been basically double agents for 20 years. Okay? And that's like one of the key things that needs to just get questioned. Okay? Also, just when talking about Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton in general, question the timing of the creation of Fox News, where Rupert Murdoch is really from. Oi, oi, oi. And I don't mean like, as in he never went to Australia, just, fuck. This has been going on a long time. And that's a key issue. And, I don't want to go into the whole Lewinsky thing and how it's basically started as a document that was forged by the Communist Party of China to set up the Clinton administration. And the Republicans just went along with it, while Putin gained power over the Russian mafia, while Fox News was being, like, basically all these chess pieces were just fucking surrounding us. And we were all like, O.J. Simpson trial, and like, once that got done, it was on to Lewinsky, Shit. Just everybody say moo, na 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 na, because you got cowed. Because I'm in Baton Rouge. Make them say, nah, nah. And if you don't know, Master P, the guy who did that rap song that you may or may not have heard of, he's from Baton Rouge. Mystical from New Orleans. Mystical. Make them shorter, Pedro. You keep them short, break them up, type a couple words at a time, wait until you see the last words that you type. That'll work. Pedro says his messages aren't coming through. And it looks like the broadcast is suppressed as usual. 3 people watching on a channel with 3,083 subscribers. I've gained 25 subscribers in the last 48 hours, I think it says, or the last 20, no, it's 28 days for that. 25 subscribers in the last one. Okay. And I do that consistently. Basically the ones that drop off, I think, are the fake bot accounts and stuff that are gradually disappearing as the Russian trolling becomes less and less necessary, and also less and less legally safe, less and less safe from the investigation that are going on, and ever expanding. But hopefully one day those investigators will realize that it is the time for my channel to be, defended and suppressed or whatever's been done to it. Because did it ever occur to you that just in case I am me, people have the right to at least decide for themselves? I am not even interested in power, not at risk of seeking power. If I wanted power, I'd snap myself and fucking give myself power. I'd snap my fingers and just, power. Be like Top Gear, only President Top Gear. Power! Yeah. And I'd rather just, funny movies be made about that. That's about as far as that should go. And like I said, if I were to ever actually use the desuppression of this channel, the promotion of this channel, to run for political office, I would only run for president. Okay, I'm not interested in being a legislator. Okay, that's kind of a waste of my time and talent. And I would only want to be president for one term. And I would refuse to endorse either candidate unless one was a danger from the horde. As far as I'm concerned, if you want to, quote, collude with one of America's allies, especially one seeking NATO membership, to protect or to, to protect America during an election by making sure you know facts about the person colluding with the enemy of your country and that country and NATO, I think that's reasonable, including with the enemy. That's a completely different thing. And I really question the motives of anybody who would like to conflate the two. Anybody who would conflate the two is doing exactly what Russia would have them say. It's the kind of evasive rhetorical tactics that I'm sure Russia put out before they put out. I think even Rachel Maddow covered that. Rachel Maddow is a brilliant fucking reporter. In fact, I meant to do this on a video for everybody to know. I hope Rachel Maddow sees this broadcast, but she might be tickled and giggle and not know what to do with herself. I'm elevating from this point forward Rachel Maddow to the status of muse. She's no longer human. She is now technically a goddess. See, right now, if you want to know the gist of reality, you need to know who's in charge. Okay? And who is in charge is in large part as a result of my promise to Gabriel that I would allow him to retire. Okay? So, Gabriel, right now, is on vacation. Okay? And a human body, I can't even get in touch with him on a cell phone. Okay? He's no idea. But I'm sure wherever he is, he's fine because he's the toughest. But anyway, so on the chair, as it were, the heavenly throne, that is the organizational point of energy that dictates kind of the background happenstance of reality. That's George Carlin. George Carlin is there and has been for several years. And he is allowed to let other people play for a day and whatnot. and he is limited by the wisdom of the greater fabric of reality that surrounds him, which is the spirit of the first daughters of God and Goddess, which you know as the original muses, that are basically the inspirational spirits that have guided humanity's consciousness and their hearts, even when history and even education can seem to just make you lose faith in humanity, and especially make you lose faith in God. I mean, easily lose faith in God. Some of the stuff that you learn about, what God lets happen, quote unquote. But of course, on that subject, the tendency or the propensity to blame God for such things is a misunderstanding of the definition of God, for starters. And secondly, but more overarchingly, it's a poor word, but free will. You need to understand free will. You understand the definition of God and the definition of yourself to understand free will. Then you can understand why reality is the way it is and why you need to help fix it. So, I'm going to, let's see this right here. Bannon undercuts Trump in a new interview. That looks like it could be juicy, eh? Let me know if you can hear it okay once it's on.
Yeah, on that note, believe it or not, there's a lot of news to cover this morning. There is another blockbuster interview from a top Trump aide, and once more, there's a question about whether or not the subject intended for it to be on the record. First, there was Anthony Scaramucci and the profanity-laden New Yorker interview.
You notice the mooch actually is looking very statesman-like now, compared to everybody else. So everybody's making fun of the mooch. Guess what? The mooch knew when to hit the eject button.
A couple of weeks ago,
the
the mooch
mooch,
was the worst it could ever be, and now the mooch looks not that bad.
Adlai Stevenson. The mooch so low. Or
We
actually,
have a
Paul
pet
goes
we
so
named
high.
Mooch.
Dean Rusk.
Yeah, the mooch.
Anyhow.
Starring Dean Rusk. Yeah,
Now,
Dean Rusk.
Steve Bannon has given an interview to a left-leaning American outlet, American Prospect, and the reasons why are not fully clear. When pressed about his role in fomenting unrest among the far right, and in particular the recent violence in Charlottesville, Bannon said, quote, he dismissed the far right as irrelevant and sidestepped his own role in cultivating it. Ethno-nationalism, it's losers. It's a fringe element. I think the media plays it up too much, and we got to help crush it. Help crush it more. These guys are a collection of clowns, he revealed. The Democrats, he said, the longer they talk about identity politics, I got them. I want to talk about racism every day. If the left is focused on race and identity, and we go with economic nationalism, we can crush the Democrats. Bannon made similar comments to the New York Times, quote, President Trump, by asking where does this all end, Washington, Jefferson, Lincoln, connects with the American people about their history, culture, and traditions. The race identity politics of the left wants to say it's all racist. Just give me more. Tear down more statues. Say the revolution is coming. I can't get enough of it. Bannon also discussed internal divisions. He said Treasury officials and National Economic Council members opposed to taking a hard line on trade with China, quote, oh, they're wetting themselves. And Bannon said this about changes to other departments, quote, I'm changing out people at East Asian Defense. I'm getting Hawks in. I'm getting Susan Thornton, acting head of East Asian Pacific Affairs, out at state. And he said this of staking his own territory. That's a fight I fight every day here. We're still fighting. There's Treasury and National Economic Council Chair Gary Cohn and Goldman Sachs lobbying. Sounds like he thinks he's the president. Anyhow, the editor, Robert Kuttner, described being surprised to get the phone call from Bannon. The White House chief strategist apparently called to praise him for a recent piece in which Kuttner had written about North Korea. Here we go. He said, quote, "In Kim, Trump has met his match. The risk of two arrogant fools blundering into a nuclear exchange is more serious than at any time since October 1962. Bannon reportedly explained on the phone that the U.S. and Chinese economic war was approaching an inflection point, and one of the two nations would emerge as the hegemon.
All right,
25
so
or
let's
30
just stop
years
here,
from
all
now.
right? We don't have to read the whole article
Got a big
because
one, though.
there's so much. Okay, go ahead. This is
Quote, contrary to Trump's threat of fire and fury, Bannon said, there is no military solution to North Korea's nuclear threats. Forget it. Until somebody solves the part of the equation that shows me that 10 million people in Seoul don't die in the first 30 minutes from conventional weapons, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no military solution here. They got us.
So, Willie, really, I don't know where to begin with this, but let's just start with the part where he
Wow.
calls the President of the United States, his boss, a blundering fool.
That's a problem.
Blundering fool, and then undercuts his military strategy by saying that don't listen to him, he's lying. When
Yay,
he says
Emily
he's
found the
lying.
live stream.
I've been critical of him for trying to undermine the president's national security advisor in a time of nuclear standoff. Yeah. He's just going straight for attacking the commander-in-chief, calling him a blustering fool and saying he's lying to the world.
Well, if the mooch had to leave, if he was shown the door for talking about internal politics inside the West Wing, how does Steve Bannon stay for this interview when he's undermining directly, Caddy K, what the president came out and said last week when he talked about fire and fury in this interview, which apparently he didn't know was an interview? Steve Bannon
Think about
says,
what I said
please,
before I
was all
put that
talk.
on.
There's no military solution to this thing, basically rolling his eyes at the fire and fury. He says we're in an economic trade war with China, and if we don't step up, we're going to lose, and they're going to be the hegemon of the
Trump
next century.
is a bail.
What is the future of Steve Bannon?
So
now that
he's
this is all
going to have
public?
his own little
Yeah, I mean,
lust for
the interview
competing, his
is
own
fascinating
little
on many
lust
levels,
for
right?
being
His relationship with
from
other
outer
people in the White
space.
House, his relationship with the president, his firm belief that the only thing that really matters is America's trade war and economic war with China, that's going to be the be-all and end-all of America's future, is whether it can get the economic upper hand over China.
Oh, God,
But
my hair.
criticizing the president directly and going against him when he says effectively there is no fire and fury, that is all bluster effect on the part of the White House. How does Bannon survive it? It's clear the president has strong reservations about getting rid of him, otherwise he would have done so up until now. Whether that's because he fears having him on the outside,
But
or because they
Caddy,
do genuinely still have this
Caddy,
relationship that they have over nationalism.
Caddy, he called him a blundering fool. I mean, he called him a blundering fool on the inside. He said that he's a liar when he talks about fire and fury on the inside. I mean, the president of the United States, like him or not, he's trying to push back North Korea from using nuclear weapons, from continuing to develop nuclear weapons. And you've got somebody inside the White House that is undercutting his strategy. So what more damage could he do on the outside than he's doing by calling him an idiot on the inside?
He's not the
I mean, you've been saying
president.
this for a long time, Joe, that Bannon is acting like President Bannon, and yet
Right.
so far the real president has not got rid of him. So there's got to be some reason, whether it's personal relationship, whether it's political
Wouldn't
affinity
it be
or
like
nationalism,
Governor Bannon?
that Trump is very reluctant to let Bannon go. Maybe this is going to be the test of John Kelly. Can John Kelly either demote or fire Steve Bannon? We'll see over the next few days.
And Mika,
If it's going to happen, it's going to happen soon after this interview.
And Mika, this is what he does all the time. He leaks to everybody, and when he leaks to everybody, he leaks as if he is the president. This is what I'm going to do next.
It's amazing.
This is what I'm doing over here. I don't have to worry about Jared because I'm going to wrap the Russia thing around his neck so much he's going to sink to the bottom of the ocean. I don't have to worry about Gary Cohn because et cetera, et cetera. That's how he talks to the media off the record. He is leaker number one. And it is remarkably, the reason I've been calling President Bannon, because he talks, as he did in that interview, like
I
he's
wonder
the
what his
president.
hookers do for him.
You can definitely hear that. And for more now, joining us from Capitol Hill, national political reporter for Axios, Jonathan Swan, who has his own reporting on what happened and what's next for Steve Bannon. Jonathan.
Thank you. Well, I just do want to correct one thing that the panel was saying. It wasn't actually Bannon that was calling Trump the arrogant fool. It was the author of the piece who wrote a column saying that. And that doesn't make it that much better because Bannon called him to praise the column. So it's not like it was a huge difference. But really, Bannon was telling allies last night that he didn't believe it was an interview, and some people are rolling their eyes, and others are saying that this is some kind of five-dimensional chess. But honestly, the looseness of it, if it was just the sort of some of the economic warfare stuff, I would totally believe that he was doing this to send a signal. But the parts of it which go beyond what Bannon would ever say on the record are the bits where he does sound like he's the president, where he's talking about personally moving staff around, and particularly the bit where he undercuts the president on North Korea, which is the bit that really caught his colleagues' attention.
So let me ask you this, John. You said that he actually called the author and praised him?
About he saw an ally on China. He thought the author and him were of the same view on China. Bannon's a China hawk. He thinks that America is in an economic war with China. He sees this as the most important issue. And I could actually see Bannon almost not thinking of this guy as a reporter, but rather an ideological ally, even though ironically, he's at a far left publication. It's I know that sounds crazy, but honestly, it's my honest reading of what happened here.
You know, Jonathan, there's another part in this, given what we've been talking about all week, where Bannon says we have to crush the white nationalism. He calls it a collection of clowns. I guess my question is, why didn't they crush white nationalism when they had a chance? When Donald Trump had a chance on Saturday, presumably Steve Bannon is a close ally and an advisor in telling Donald Trump what the right thing to say is. Why didn't they come out and say that on Saturday when they had the chance? And why didn't he come out and say it the other day at Trump Tower when he had the chance again?
And why was he celebrating what Donald Trump said this weekend and on Monday?
Well, I think people give Bannon too much credit as an advisor to Trump. He's spoken, when Donald Trump said that he hasn't spoken to Steve Bannon about Charlottesville, that's not true. He has spoken. My reporting is that they spoke on the phone Saturday, Sunday, Monday. But this is pure Donald Trump. I mean, yes, Bannon cheers it on and thought it was the right response to condemn both sides. But this is Trump. I mean, the idea that Bannon is some sort of puppet master directing this is it's not true. It's Trump's core instincts and his gut.
All right, really.
What about the idea that Bannon is actually the president and is able to, get rid of people that stayed and will take care of?
I know.
Isn't that remarkable?
And this, I mean,
and I got a nice Trump too.
That
It's a big drop.
I don't know, but it's, again, like as we said a couple months ago, he said, "Oh, I'll take care of Jared Kushner with Russia," and here he's saying, "Oh, I'm going to fire this person," and "Oh, I'm going to fire that person."
That's extraordinary.
It's always I.
Well, you remember at the Trump Tower press conference on Wednesday or on Tuesday, President
and when
Trump,
it's Trump, it's always
when he was asked about Steve Bannon, he called him Mr. Bannon. Mr. Bannon.
I like him.
He said, "Quote, we'll see what happens." So,
Exactly.
He came on very late. I
That
don't
would
really know, but very well. That's
You're
that's
fired.
right. So,
Oh my God. Okay, so that was special, wasn't it? If you're just joining the channel or you've subscribed recently and hadn't hung out and chatted with us, please, by all means, come and say hello. We want to hear from you. We're always interested in new opinions that aren't from Russian trolls or the people who are brainwashed by Fox News. If you are either one of those, please feel free to continue staying silent. That way we don't have to tell you to shut the fuck up. Anyway. But other than that, we're always interested in asking actual questions. Nothing. Gotcha questions. So. I think probably the best thing I've seen and that I absolutely need to I guess, make sure there's another copy of for posterity, and check and see if I need to add anything to it, is the Rachel Maddow broadcast from last night. And yes, that is Darkwing Duck right now. Don't worry, you're not going to get dangerous. Which is a dance, by the way. It's what you're doing when you're doing Darkwing Duck, should I say. Yeah. Okay, so I think I'm just stumbling upon more MSNBC suppression because that's my watch history. And that's when I watched it. And okay, so this Rachel Maddow episode from last night, ooh, look, some dumbass is live streaming. Okay, sorry. So the Rachel Maddow show from last night had a lot of good information. Just a lot of plethora. But, and this is never mind. Yeah, so the Rachel Maddow thing from last night, there's a bunch of these different little channels that apparently subscribe or sign up for these block feeds. And I don't know if they have permission to get them or if it's just like a thing that's done. But they take them and they upload them. Hold on one second. And anyways, there's been problems with last night's episode. I'm just going to put something on right quick because my stepdad just pulled up and I can see what he needs. But apparently it's going to take some difficulty to find that one again. Last night's Rachel Maddow was something else. Anyway, let me see. If I can just find something. This right here is something you have to see.
Soil by Nazis. DeAndre Harris beaten and bludgeoned by Nazis. This is not talking points here. This is not partisanship. This is human life. And as a mother, to hear the president of these United States not sit here and condemn what has happened as a black woman of 2 black boys, my heart bleeds. This is not talking points here. This is personal. And we as a nation, as a country, have to do better.
John, Gianno, do you agree with that? Do you think, they're good people on both sides of this debate. We talk about keeping these statues up. People that I've talked to say this is about history. How do we move forward? How do we learn from those mistakes if we just tear everything down?
You know, I come today with a very heavy heart. Last night I couldn't sleep at all because President Trump, our president, has literally betrayed the conscience of our country, the very moral fabric in which we've made progress when it comes to race relations in America. He's failed us. And it's very unfortunate that our president would say things like he did in that press conference yesterday when he says, well, there's, good people on the side of the Nazis. They weren't all Nazis. They weren't all white supremacists. Mr. President, good people don't pile around with Nazis and white supremacists. Maybe they don't consider themselves white supremacists and Nazis, but certainly they hold those views. This has become very troubling. And for anyone to come on any network and defend what President Trump did and said at that press conference yesterday is completely lost and the potential to be morally bankrupt. I am sorry. I believe that, and I'm being very honest. As someone who's been talking about these issues for a very long time, I'm sorry that this is where we are right now, and I hope the president learns a lesson from his press conference on yesterday. It's disturbing.
Gianno, these are very sensitive topics, and it's tough to talk about. And look, this country is all about free speech. So both of you have every right to come on here and be emotional and be real and be open about how you're feeling. When we're talking, though, Gianno, about the debate of these statues and whether or not they should stay up or go down. I mean, this argument that it's a slippery slope, where does that end? Where do you fall specifically on that debate?
Well, first and foremost, people who are taking down the statues, they should do so legally. If you want to petition your government, sure, do so. Obviously, you can't destroy property. That's against the law. That's obvious. But what we also must keep in mind that President Trump's comments yesterday is emboldening those who want to destroy property. And obviously that doesn't excuse their behavior by any means, but if you have a president in office who's a moral leader, who should be a moral leader, who is saying things that people believe they may take actions into their own hands and say, look, I can go about this because our president doesn't care. My grandfather, James Earl Williams, who lived in Helena, Arkansas, where the Klan, it was a hotbed of racism there, the Klan activity, who left the South to go into the North in Chicago, who called me on yesterday, who said, look, when you get that opportunity, tell President Trump he should take a look in the mirror and look at the people, not just the black folks who may feel marginalized by his comments, but the white Americans who fought against slavery, fought against the marginalization of black folks in America, people of color, and even the Jews. Let him know that it's time to have a real conversation on race. And as I did on Monday when I reached out to the White House, I told them, I said, President Trump must speak to this country in very clear terms, very distinct terms, just like President Obama did and Senator Obama in 2008 when we had a national dialogue on race. It's time for us to have that conversation again.
Well, Wendy,
absolutely
look,
necessary.
he is the President of the United States. He is the Commander-in-Chief for all of us. Last week, Wendy, what would you like to hear more of from the President on this?
I would like the president not to use inflammatory terms. We are all healing. We need to come together as a country. We need leadership. We need moral leadership. We do not need anyone who does anything nefarious to people who are citizens of this country to feel as though they are empowered. That's not what we're here for. People are hurting. My colleague on the other side of the aisle and I are both tearing up. This is beyond talking points. This is beyond partisanship. We need to come together as a country. It's not politics. These are raw emotions. And our president needs to speak from his heart and bring us together, because right now we are a nation divided.
All right, Wendy, Gianno, strong emotions there, and it's a tough debate. We appreciate you coming on and being open.
Well, isn't that special? There was kind of just something weird about that, wasn't there? Like, I mean, and I really appreciate it on its surface. I really do. But it's kind of like they did it just to not quite go far enough. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, We'll see exactly what Maximo said. Oh, but my window's not responding. So. Let me see if that'll refresh without screwing too much stuff up. What did the Maximus say? I want to see if I can zoom in the chat. Then, let's see. I'll try to make this window. That sucks. Okay. That. Oh no. I can't quite do that, can I? But. Oh. That's okay at all. Just trying to make it a little more legible on the screen before it crashes again. How about that? Is that legible on anybody's phones? If anybody's using a phone, it's probably legible on a computer screen by now. Okay. What does the Trump say? Wee 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 wee. Oh yeah, I was about to like talk about something serious with it. Anyway, then my browser crashed again. Okay. So, Emily had said, so glad the white chick gave the black people the quote, right to be emotional. Yeah, it was very nice of her. Didn't it seem like she, even with what she said, that she had stopped herself kind of in the middle of her sentence from saying something even more shitty? Like she was still being careful, you know, and it still came out like that. That's special. It's special. But let's see here. There is one that I did not get to watch yet that I would like to put on next before we continue the discussion about Fox News. I guess you're a race baiter. That's what that one says. I'll highlight it over. It's getting pretty special on these little talking head cool things. Let's see. Pull up this one channel. We'll probably have a copy of it. There's that's not that frequently of an uploader. It's not going to be on the recommended ones. So the guy on the right basically was on, I think it was AM Joy yesterday. I think. I think Paris wishes he was Paris Hilton. And I think everything he does is based on like rape, but that isn't so. And that's mostly a joke, but it still kind of might be true. And that's what makes it fun. To me, to me. I don't know if that's funny to y'all, but I got 5 people watching. Maybe occasionally I tell a joke at work. Okay, so that didn't work. And also, no sign of last night's Rachel Maddow. Wow. Okay, I might. Usually there's a couple of MSNBCs on the recommended and the recently uploaded, and I don't even see that. That was suppressed for a while, so it appears to be something they can turn on and off. I don't know. This is the episode, though. The full episode is 57 minutes. And what I was saying earlier, sorry, I completely digressed. Once my stepdad came and picked up the laptop, I'm trying to help him get into my dead mother's emails. Yeah, that's always fun. Not emotionally trying for me at all. But yeah, he came to pick up the laptop, and I had written down like a little index card for him, so he knows what to do. So that one right there in the middle, Rachel Maddow, and the half Russian, half American flag splash. It says in front of it, ongoing inquiries in that particular icon. But there was a lot of different uploads, or attempted uploads, of this video. This one, the channel was showing as Impeach Trump. And it was on these Inside Politics and Shido Media and all that. It's weird how like one shows up one day and one shows up the next day. 672 Politics Video channel. There's an actual MSNBC video. USA News Official 3, 3, 4. No one expects the MSNBC videos. Morning at 6 a.m. and another one. Paranormal Lockdown, for some reason that's another one. And they go and they upload these videos. Well, this one of this particular Rachel Maddow episode, how to explain it? It'll like the different uploads are all different. Usually they're they're all the same little block, which seems to me basically it's the part of the show that MSNBC doesn't upload, kinda. I'm not sure how that gets coordinated, but that's what it had been seeming like. So the chops that you would get would be parts of MSNBC that would get uploaded later, or that had already been uploaded. And sometimes they would even upload it before MSNBC uploaded it, and then it wouldn't even be chopped. But they would have most of the full episode up, or at least half the episode up in 2 clips, half each. But this episode was different. I could not find, for the first several hours of looking for it, until like 1 o'clock in the morning, or no, actually until this morning, until 5:30, I think, a.m. And every one of them had a different part of it, and all of them seemed to leave off the most important part, and that's about, of course, like new connections with the Russia thing. And also, man, and I wanted to get Rachel Maddow's attention for more than one reason on this broadcast today, because of her incredibly brilliant and heroic work. Would you say heroic work Rachel Maddow's done? While everybody was talking about, I need to start it from there. While everybody was talking about Charlottesville, and you might have expected her upload last night to again be about Charlottesville, or at least some way related to it, centrally. It was, I need to ask my wife what time it was, but it was probably about 9 o'clock. I think either while she was doing her show or just after she had done her show, I sensed her pray. A smart-ass little prayer. And I knew at that moment what the broadcast that she was going to make would be about. I don't see her broadcast until at least 15 minutes, half an hour after it plays on the East Coast. You know, like, I see it from these little channels here, except for the clips that MSNBC uploads. And apparently, the one that I just watched this morning has vanished. Because I watched it here somewhere. I mean, really, the dark-winged duck? That was before. That was early afternoon. That was right when the kids got home. So it's even all those ones I was telling you about that I had watched. I mean, I watched a couple full ones, and then I watched, because I usually watch her broadcast twice just to make sure I'm not, ADD, failing to absorb anything, right? Because I got a lot going on around here. But none of them are Rachel Maddow. None of them. None of the ones I saw are showing up. See, that's... I watched 2 full ones, and they were 43 minutes long. Well, let me just check and make sure this isn't it. I don't think these are it.
How are we feeling? First day, new school, are you nervous?
I'm pretty exhausted, hopeless. I don't enjoy the things.
Okay.
White supremacist who dated
Charlottesville.
Alright. Amid all the criticism, the president is helping to divide the country instead of unity.
Alright. CBS, that's an MSNBC upload, that's a CNN live stream. That's after my wife got home, that's when my wife got home. And I had watched probably 6 of these videos. 2 of them I watched all the way through. The rest of them I put on and then scanned through to try to get to the part where it seemed like those 2 had both cut off. And they were 41 or that one that just showed was 43 minutes, right? They were 41 or so minutes long, I think. They could have been 43. They weren't 51. They weren't 48. They weren't 44 minutes long. They were definitely somewhere in the early 40s long. I thought 41 minutes long, and I usually remember that kind of shit. They've all disappeared. Off of my history. So they've all been wiped. That's what that means. That means they're not there anymore. So let's. Oh no. I didn't want that to refresh. Shit. Oh no. Does anybody remember which channel it said that it was on? I didn't make a note of which channel it said it was on. I don't know if I said it. I don't remember. Was it Shadow? Hard to watch. I'm addicted by the situation in regards to the video we watched earlier with the two black Republican correspondents on Fox. I read his Twitter feed. He's still Putin, Trump. We are not a nation divided. We are a nation that is being divided. We have not divided ourselves. We need to recognize this country's division. Theresa May has spoken against Trump, condemning his position on this subject. It's good to know the British are not going along with this. Our nation is against the Nazis. Yeah, exactly. You don't call Americans the alt-left. Okay? And you know, the early 1940s, 400,000 Americans, 400,000 alt-lefties did not die defending Europe from kind people, decent, nice people, whatever you said. Fuck's sake. Is my audio off balance? My microphone's off balance? I don't know if there's anything I can do about that. We were just happy enough to get the, chipmunk voices and echoes resolved yesterday. Okay. Apparently, my wife needs my attention. Oh yes, Dave came by, got the laptop, and yeah. I don't even know if this laptop has a microphone in it, but so maybe we can get a USB microphone one day. But let me check and see if there's anything I can do. And y'all let me know what crazy sound effects show up, huh? Okay, so what does this sound like? Oh, and I still have there is an echo though. Does it sound like a double microphone source echo, or does it sound like bad digital reverb? Like, can I just talk quieter and it goes away now? Because if I can just get away with mumbling, I can just mumble. Oh. What? Like, I understand. No, I don't. Okay, maybe there's one more thing I can try. Oh look, it's not showing any volume at all. Huh. Okay, and how is that audio? Love you too, baby. Okay, so it's loud and clear for somebody, and it's multiple echoes now. Okay, that one. Emily is getting three echoes. and Pedro says loud and clear. How's that? That's not helpful, Pedro. How is this now? Ho ho ho! Merry Christmas! Oh, where's my cigarette? Okay. So, hopefully this isn't the thing that I said about 2 years ago where I accidentally configured the effects and got a God voice and then, like, the nuke started dropping. Yeah. Or this might be. What do I need to say to jinx that and make it not happen? Alright, stream only that one. How's that sound? We're gonna get this right so I could actually set it up and hear stuff. Okay, so that should be different now. I don't know how. Each time I ask you how it sounds, I've configured it differently. They're just gonna keep trying stuff until we figure out the one that works. Okay. And how's that sound? There we go. Still. And how's that sound? Okay, that seems to me as off as I can turn the other webcam. So let me see. How does that sound? Still a little bit of echo, huh? Okay. And how does that sound? Testes. 1, 2, 3. So this here is the best one. Correct? I've changed it back to the previous setting before that last one. Dun 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 pancakes. Dun 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 food. That's what I say when I'm waiting for my order at IHOP. So everybody agree this is the best setting? Kind of sucks that there still is an echo. This is hard work. I'm tired. Okay. Oh. My fucking back's all curled over. Ow. Shit. Oh, okay. Sorry. I'll be with you in a second. I have to stretch. Fuck beans. I'm like old dog. Once I get started, I gotta just do the whole routine. Then I start kicking my leg. Yeah. Yeah, never mind. Okay, so let us see, said the blind man to his deaf dog.
Doesn't look like it's up there. And of course this is going to refresh again, even though it's not supposed to refresh when you hit back from something that you just went into. But they don't want you to be able to, like, say, I'm going to go back to that later. Okay, it was on the Impeach Trump channel. Okay. Alright, I'm just going to check and make sure it doesn't show up anywhere else. If you haven't seen it yet, you need to watch and share lots of links. Share links daily of this video on MSNBC's channel called Russia Continues Info-War Tactics in U.S. That is probably one of the most important videos, and I hope it's if it's already on my need to know list, it needs to be added again just so it can be more present on there. So the Impeach Trump channel is it. So I hope me watching it doesn't make it get deleted off of their channel. But we're about to watch it. Who was one of the more prominent never-Trump Republicans, would get crushed in a primary. Unfortunately, this is the other video I was looking for. I was talking about with that one dude on AM Joy. Okay. This is the Republican Party, or the Republican Klan Party, as I said earlier, that exists today. And until we see Patriots of conscience, to the extent that those are left, who leave this party and denounce this president, not his words, denounce him by name. The president is the purveyor of hate. The president is now the nation's #1 national security threat. Does that sound okay? Have opened a Pandora's box that will hurt and kill Americans.
I wish we had more time, but we do not have more time, so I'm going to end it here. We'll have to try to do this again. Gianno Caldwell, Fernando Mondi, thank you both for being here tonight. Appreciate it. That is all we have for All In this evening. The Rachel Maddow Show starts right now. Good evening, Rachel.
There is smoke coming down the hall. Is that the fire alarm, or is that Joy's show?
If it's a fire alarm, it's going to ruin my hair with the sprinkler sign. Getting out of here. Have a great show.
Thank you, Joy. Appreciate it, man. And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. It is a weird time in the news right now. It's a weird time in American life, honestly. We're keeping an eye on a few different stories that have been cooking today and stories that are still continuing to develop tonight. There is a story that has just broken in the last few minutes that I need to tell you about. Just moments ago, we learned from the New York Times that the president's lead...
That's on the webcam. Alright. I'm going to keep this one the same, and we're going to see what we can do about fixing the how bad does that make the echo if I'm mumbling? We'll test the voice echo first. And now I'm going to put the video back on. I turned what allegedly is the webcam's microphone back on. Who was one of the more prominent never-Trump Republicans, would get crushed in a primary. Unfortunately, this is the Republican Party, or the Republican Klan Party, as I said earlier, that exists today. And until we see denounce this president, not his words, denounce him by name. The president is the purveyor of hate. The president is now the nation's #1 national security threat because his words have opened a Pandora's box that will hurt and kill America.
I wish we had more time. We do not have more time, so I'm going to end it here. We'll try to do this again. Gianno Caldwell, Fernando Mondi, thank you both for being here tonight. Appreciate it. That is all we have for All In this evening. The Rachel Maddow Show starts right now. Good evening, Rachel. There is smoke coming down the hall. Is that the fire alarm?
or is that Joy's show?
Hey, if it's a fire alarm, I'm going to move my hair with a sprinkler. Getting out of here.
And thanks to everyone for joining us this hour. It is a weird time in the news right now. It's a weird time in American life, honestly. We're keeping an eye on a few different stories that have been cooking today and stories that are still continuing to develop tonight. There is a story that has just broken in the last few minutes that I need to tell you about. Just moments ago, we learned from the New York Times that the president's lead lawyer on the Russia investigation has just done something you would not expect from a person who has that particular job.
How about that?
I mean, mostly you would expect somebody in that job to be busy, right? I mean, even if one of the things that had maybe hurt you or been a distraction in your professional life was that you were like a constant
This really shouldn't be this difficult.
sticking your foot in your mouth whenever you have the opportunity to. You'd think being the president's lead lawyer on a scandal as big and as threatening as the Russia investigation would actually cure that problem for you, right? You would be protected from getting involved in other unrelated controversies just because you'd be buried in work. You're leading the president's defense on the biggest national security scandal to ever afflict any American president. You'd be too busy to get in trouble. Right? You'd think. The president's lead lawyer on the Russia scandal today
How about that?
had some extra time on his hands. And he decided to use that extra time to forward this information to a number of journalists. Quote, "You cannot be against General Robert E. Lee and be for General George Washington. There literally is no difference between the two men." John Dowd's email also said that the group Black Lives Matter, quote, "has been totally infiltrated by terrorist groups." Again, this was sent out today by the president's lead lawyer on the Russia investigation. Now, he's not to be confused with the guy who started out as the president's lead lawyer on the Russia investigation. Mark Kasowitz started off as the lead guy for the president. He ended up making national news for threatening random strangers over email, saying things like,
Does that help?
Thing that rhymes with ditch. Mark Kasowitz, since his all-night, late-night email storm threatening random strangers, has since basically disappeared. Although nobody will just come out and say that he's no longer part of the president's Russia legal team. The president also put a well-known Christian rights lawyer on his Russia legal team, and although we don't know exactly what his role is on the Russia team, he spends so much time on the Fox News channel talking about everything from North Korea to Hillary Clinton that it's also hard to believe that he's spending a ton of hard-working hours actually crafting...
How does lower volume work?
And in fact, when he has actually talked about the president's Russian defense, it has not gone very well. So, you know, if you were the only president of the United States to ever face a serious special counsel-led FBI counterintelligence investigation while you were in office, you would want to make sure that you had the best lawyers on earth, right? Working harder than any lawyers have ever worked on anything, right? You might think this president's legal team on the Russia issue is this guy, Jay Sekulow, who argues like 10 Commandments cases and spends all day, every day on Fox News. Also, the incredible disappearing Mr. Watch Your Back. Also, there's John Dowd, who is apparently now, as of today, spending his time emailing out pro-Confederacy musings to journalists and friends. That's according to Michael Schmidt and Matt Apuzzo, this New York Times Post story that just posted tonight. Reporters apparently called John Dowd for comment after they got his pro-secessionist email. Here's how they describe that request for comment. Quote, "In a brief telephone interview, Mr. Dowd told the Times, 'You're sticking your nose in my personal email? People send me things. I forward them.' He then hung up." End quote. Now, to be fair, we do not know why the
How about now?
picked John Dowd to run his legal team on the Russia investigation. But from our perspective as Americans, just watching the scandal unfold and wondering about the president's legal representation here, from our perspective, knowing that he picked John Dowd to lead that team,
That's what it is.
no matter what the president sees in him, we probably should have seen this coming. CNBC caught up with
It's not letting me. If I... Believe me, that's the obvious choice. I mean... Yeah, I know.
That was Mr. Dowd's previous most high-profile case, when his client was not only convicted but given the longest sentence ever in an insider trading case. He's now leading the president's legal team, and he's now sending secessionist emails to reporters. So that happened. We're going to post a link at maddowblog.com to this new New York Times story that just posted. If you're ever going to be a United States president who's under FBI investigation, maybe this would be something to study in terms of putting together your legal team. At a time of intense anxiety about this presidency, one of the things we're going to be reporting on tonight is some unusual movements by the vice president. I don't think anybody's expecting President Trump to resign imminently or to...
How does it sound now?
...or do something dramatic, but things are weird enough right now for this presidency that the vice president...
But I just changed it again.
...unexplained changes in his schedule. That has people a little bit on edge. We're going to have more on that ahead coming up in just a moment. The president, of course, lost his Manufacturing Advisory Council today. He also lost his Strategic and Policy Forum, whatever that was. Neither of these groups appear to have ever done anything substantive. The Manufacturing Council, for example, never once met. But as of today, those groups of CEOs and business leaders who are all supposedly advising the president, those groups are gone now, after CEOs starting to peel off and leave. And the president then scrambled to disband the groups before they could further embarrass him by continuing to drop out one by one. So we've been watching that drama unfold today.
Okay, how's that sound? Is that any different? Any different?
High-profile business leaders think of addressing that the White House had set up for him. I will tell you, though, that pursuant to that story about all those CEOs all quitting those advisory groups, the prevailing feeling right now in many newsrooms across the country is a feeling that we are all waiting for the other shoe to drop. This piece of Politico.com all day today, and I actually think it's pretty emblematic of what a lot of people in the news business are watching right now and wondering right now. I mean, all these White House sources are professing to reporters anonymously that they feel super uneasy about being associated with this president after his remarks this week. People keep telling reporters they are wrestling with the president's remarks praising white supremacists. White House staffers are telling reporters that they were stunned
How about that?
by the president's remarks. What the president is doing now and how he's behaving on this issue is being described as an intensely awkward thing, even for the most senior people at the White House. Okay. Therefore, naturally, everybody's been expecting that people will start to resign, right? Even though he resigns explicitly in protest of the president aligning himself with white nationalists, or at least people will resign in a less brave way and just say they want to spend more time with their cats or whatever. I mean, that's the expectation. But so far, there have been no resignations from the administration. For people who have actual jobs there, at least, this big work window dressing advisory board hollowed out.
I got one better for you.
Actually working in the administration. Apparently, everybody's fine. Nobody.
How's that?
I mean, so honestly, like everybody else, we are watching and wondering about whether there are going to be any White House or administration resignations. There's a lot of noise out there of people in the administration and people in the White House saying how bad they feel about how the president is behaving, but anybody stepping up and resigning because of it, honestly, I think people thought that was the vice president making nationalists, or at least people will
All right. So, let's start this fucking tea party over, shall we? Everybody have a clean cup? Clean cup, move down. Clean cup, move down, clean cup, move down.
Who was one of the more prominent never-Trump Republicans would get crushed in a primary. Unfortunately,
This is the Republican Party, or the Republican Klan Party, as I said earlier, that exists today. And until we see patriots of conscience, to the extent that those are left, will leave this party and denounce this president, not his words, denounce him by name. The president is the purveyor of hate. The president is now the nation's #1 national security threat because his words have opened a Pandora's box that will hurt and kill Americans.
I wish we had more time, but we do not have more time. So I'm going to end it here. We'll have to try to do this again. Gianno Caldwell, Fernando Mondi, thank you both for being here tonight. Appreciate it. That is all we have for All In this evening. The Rachel Maddow Show starts right now. Good evening, Rachel.
There is smoke coming down the hall. I was like, is that the fire alarm or is that Joy's show?
If it's a fire alarm, it's going to ruin my hair with a sprinkler. Fine. Getting out of here. Have a great show.
Thank you, Joy. Appreciate it, man. And thanks to you at home for joining us this hour. It is a weird time in the news right now. It's a weird time in American life, honestly. We're keeping an eye on a few different stories that have been cooking today and stories that are still continuing to develop tonight. There is a story that has just broken in the last few minutes that I need to tell you about. Just moments ago, we learned from the New York Times that the president's lead lawyer on the Russia investigation has just done something you would not expect from a person who has that particular job. I mean, mostly you would expect somebody in that job to be busy, right? I mean, even if one of the things that had maybe hurt you or been a distraction in your professional life was that you were like a controversy magnet, you were known for sticking your foot in your mouth whenever you had the opportunity to, you'd think being the president's lead lawyer on a scandal as big and as threatening as the Russia investigation would actually cure...
All I did was turn down the... I just turned off my webcam. I just unchecked the source. So... There's my webcam. Wait. Oh, hold on. Wait. Shit. See? Here I am. The audio should be horrible again. And so apparently... it's possible that I've just exceeded the polyphony capability of the audio device, but it just... This is kind of a badass laptop. So, I find that hard to believe. That's all. Anyways.
that problem for you, right? You would be protected that had maybe hurt you or been a distraction in your professional life was that you were like a controversy magnet. You were known for sticking your foot in your mouth whenever you had the opportunity to. You'd think being the president's lead lawyer on a scandal as big and as threatening as the Russia investigation would actually cure that problem for you, right? You would be protected from getting involved in other unrelated controversies just because you'd be buried in work. You're leading the president's defense on the biggest national security scandal to ever afflict any American president. You'd be too busy to get in trouble, right? You'd think. The president's lead lawyer on the Russia scandal today apparently had some extra time on his hands, and he decided to use that extra time to forward this information to a number of journalists. Quote, "You cannot be against General Robert E. Lee and be for General George Washington. There literally is no difference between the two men." John Dowd's email also said that the group Black Lives Matter, quote, has been...
It should be the case that I could simply have both cameras running and mute one microphone and not the other. And basically, the more I did that, the more I separated the audio sources, both in muting and even separating their output devices, the worse it got instead of better. So now I've had to turn off my webcam as a source altogether, so there's just, the configurations don't count. But it wasn't a failure of the concept. The concept should have worked. It's the configurations that are basically ineffectual that caused that whole problem. The laptop I'm working on is a quad-core Athlon AMD A8 with Radeon graphics made by Asus. It's the one that y'all bought me. It's the one that the surprise donor bought me. But y'all contributed enough. Y'all can all take credit for this. And it's got a very good audio system in it. But yeah, I'm using the webcam from the old computer, and it's got its integrated webcam. They both have microphones on them. I should be able to mute one. I should be able to mute like each microphone individually, but for some reason I can't anymore. It actually did work the first couple times, but now it doesn't. So, interesting, isn't it? Anyways.
Totally infiltrated by terrorist groups.
That's just what I was thinking.
Again, this was sent out today by the president's lead lawyer on the Russia investigation. Now, he's not to be confused with the guy who started out as the president's lead lawyer on the Russia investigation. Mark Kasowitz started off as the lead guy for the president. He ended up making national news for threatening random strangers over email, saying things like, "Watch your back,
And then he got in his car and put on, "Here I go again on my own."
Rhymes with ditch. Mark Kasowitz, since his all-night, late-night email storm threatening random strangers, has since basically disappeared. Although nobody will just come out and say that he's no longer part of the president's Russia legal team. The president also put a well-known Christian rights lawyer on his Russia legal team, and although we don't know exactly what his role is on the Russia team, he spends so much time on the Fox.
If that guy's a Christian rights lawyer, it's no wonder Christianity's in trouble.
News channel talking about everything from North Korea to Hillary Clinton, that it's also hard to believe that he's spending a ton of hard-working hours actually crafting the president's Russia defense. And in fact, when he has actually talked about the president's Russia defense, it has not gone very well. So, if you were the only president of the United States to ever face a serious special counsel-led FBI counterintelligence investigation while you were in office, you would want to make sure that you had the best lawyers on earth, right? Working harder than any lawyers have ever worked on anything, right? You would think. This president's legal team on the Russia issue is this guy, Jay Sekulow, who argues like 10 Commandments cases and spends all day, every day on Fox News. Also, the incredible disappearing Mr. Watch Your Back.
Oh yeah, because you know how important that old covenant is to Christianity, which basically is belief in the new covenant. Huh.
Also, there's John Dowd, who is apparently now, as of today, spending his time emailing out pro-Confederacy musings to journalists and friends. That's according to Michael Schmidt and Matt Apuzzo in this New York Times story that just posted tonight. The reporters apparently called John Dowd for comment after they got his pro-secessionist email. Here's how they describe that quest for comment. Quote, in a brief telephone interview, Mr. Dowd told the Times, "You're sticking your nose in my personal email? People send me things. I forward them."
I wonder how often Matt Apuzzo has a pizza delivery guy that makes a song out of his name. Bringing a pizza to Matt Apuzzo, bringing a pizza to Matt Apuzzo.
He then hung up. End quote. Now, to be fair, we do not know why the president picked John Dowd to run his legal team on the Russia investigation. But from our perspective as Americans, just watching this scandal unfold and wondering about the president.
In case you can't read the scroll, Sean Conway says, that guy looks like a supervillain secondhand man.
This legal representation here, from our perspective, knowing that he picked John Dowd to lead that team, no matter what the president sees in him, we probably should have seen this coming. CNBC caught up with Mr. Dowd just a short time ago.
Would you like any comment for CNBC, though? Get the f*** out of here.
That was Mr. Dowd's previous most high-profile case, when his client was not only convicted but given the longest sentence ever in an insider trading case. He's now leading the president's legal team, and he's now sending secessionist emails to reporters. So that happened. We're going to post a link at maddowblog.com to this new New York Times story that just posted. If you're ever going to be a United States president who's under FBI investigation, maybe this would be something to study in terms of putting together your legal team. At a time of intense anxiety about this presidency, one of the things we're going to be reporting on tonight is some unusual movements by the vice president. I don't think anybody's expecting President Trump to resign imminently or to, try to flee the country or do something dramatic. But things are weird enough right now for this presidency that the vice president making dramatic and unexplained changes in his schedule, that has people a little bit on edge. We're going to have more on that ahead coming up in just a moment. The president, of course, lost his Manufacturing Advisory Council today. He also lost his Strategic and Policy Forum, whatever that was. Neither of these groups appear to have ever done anything substantive. The Manufacturing Council, for example, never once met. But as of today, those groups of CEOs and business leaders who were all supposedly advising the president, those groups are gone now after CEOs started to peel off and leave. And the president then scrambled to disband the groups before they could further embarrass him by continuing to drop out one by one. So we've been watching that drama unfold today as this president, who very much wants to be seen as a business leader, loses the highest profile business leader window dressing that the White House had set up for him. I will tell you, though, that pursuant to that story about all those CEOs all quitting those advisory groups, the prevailing feeling right now in many newsrooms across this country is a feeling that we are all waiting for the other shoe to drop. This piece led Politico.com all day today, and I actually think it's pretty emblematic of what a lot of people in the news business are watching right now and wondering right now. I mean, all these White House sources are professing to reporters anonymously that they feel super uneasy about being associated with this president after his remarks this week. People keep telling reporters they are wrestling with the president's remarks, praising white supremacists. White House staffers are telling reporters that they were startled by the president's remarks. What the president is doing now and how he's behaving on this issue is being described as an intensely awkward thing, even for the most senior people at the White House. Okay, therefore, naturally, everybody's been expecting that people will start to resign, right? Either they'll resign explicitly in protest of the president allying himself with white nationalists,
sting operation,
in a less brave way and just say they want to spend more time with their cats or whatever.
Oh, but if they're all just holding position because so many of them are either Russian spies or part of the sting operation against said Russian spies, then none of them would be able to resign, would they? No matter how much crazy shit little mini Hitler said.
I mean, that's the expectation, but so far there have been no resignations from the administration. From people who have actual jobs there, at least. This make-work window dressing advisory board hollowed out, but that's it. In terms of people actually working in the administration, apparently everybody's fine. Nobody's leaving. They're all okay with it. I mean, so honestly, like everybody else, we are watching and
is leaving,
wondering about whether there are going to be any White House or administration resignations.
And that's
right. There's a lot of noise out there. People in the administration, people in the White House saying how bad they feel about how the president is behaving. But anybody stepping up and resigning because of it, honestly, I think people thought that was going to happen today, and it did not happen today. We're monitoring some very interesting signs of dissent against the president, though, from the top brass of the military. That's an interesting thing. We're going to have more on that ahead tonight, and that's a thorny constitutional issue. We're also keeping an eye on an increasingly high-profile bid by Democrats to convince their Republican colleagues to at least censure the president for the remarks that he made on white nationalism this week. We're going to have more on that ahead tonight as well. But I want to foreground tonight a different type of personnel change, one that is an actual surprise and is potentially an important signal on the team of prosecutors and investigators who are working on the special counsel investigation led by former FBI Director Robert Mueller. You'll remember that Robert Mueller got the job of being special counsel, running the special counsel investigation in May of this year. But we also know from congressional testimony from former CIA Chief John Brennan and from fired FBI Director James Comey that the Bob Mueller special counsel investigation didn't just start this May when Robert Mueller got named special counsel. The nut of that investigation, the core of it, started last year. The FBI opened its counterintelligence investigation into the Russian attack on our election and the question of whether or not the Trump campaign helped with that attack or was involved in that attack. They opened that investigation all the way back last year, last summer. The CIA director said his agency had seen enough information about unexplained contacts and communication between Trump associates and representatives of the Russian government that they convened a task force last summer to look into it, and the result was the FBI opening their counterintelligence investigation last year, last July. Well, when the FBI set up that investigation last year, last July, they reportedly put in charge of it, put as the supervisor of that investigation, the chief of the FBI's counter-espionage section. He's in charge of supervising the investigation. His name is Peter Strzok. I think that's the way you say his last name, Strzok. According to previous reporting in the New York Times, he is an experienced FBI supervisor. He worked on some of the FBI's most secret investigations involving Chinese spying and Russian spying in the United States. So he's not only a high-ranking FBI official, he has the FBI job that you would most like to have if you're a fan of that TV show, The Americans, right? This is like the really sexy counter-espionage part of the FBI. Counter-espionage means that you work to thwart other countries in their efforts to spy here in the United States. So you try to find foreign agents operating here, you try to find Americans who have willingly or unwittingly been turned or being used by foreign governments who are operating espionage operations here.
I may have gotten carried away.
And this senior FBI officer, he had reportedly risen in the ranks at the FBI to become the lead guy at the FBI section that tries to find and uproot all foreign spying operations here in the United States. So he's got the job that they make movies about, right? Obviously, it's a very important job, sensitive job. Everything that happens in that part of the FBI is very secret for obvious reasons. And I think...
Does anybody else just like think of the Life of Brian theme song every time they try to think of the James Bond or the... Never mind.
Because of that, we don't actually know a lot about him, even with a last name as Googleable as this. See, his last name is spelled S-T-R-Z-O-K. I think it's pronounced Strzok. I don't know exactly. Forgive me if I'm getting that wrong. But even with a name that Googleable, there's very little you can find out about Peter Strzok in the public record. I mean, there's that New York Times reporting that says he ran sensitive, secretive operations against Russian and Chinese espionage. We know from some of the deep journalistic dives into what happened with the FBI in last year's election that he was involved at a high level into the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton using a private email server when she was Secretary of State. But after that Clinton investigation got wrapped up, Mr. Strzok got put in charge of the FBI's investigation into the Russian attack on the election. And that crucial question of whether or not the Trump campaign was involved in it.
Dun, dun, dun.
He was the FBI supervisor coordinating the Russia investigation that started last summer. That ran through the fall, that ran through the election, that ran into the new year, and was finally disclosed to the public in the spring. The FBI first publicly confirmed that open counterintelligence investigation in March, when James Comey testified about it to Congress. And we all know what happened next, right? Within a matter of weeks after that testimony, James Comey himself was fired. The FBI reportedly opened yet another investigation into whether Comey's firing might have been an effort to obstruct justice on the part of the president. Very quickly thereafter, Robert Mueller was named special counsel, and he was put in charge of all of it. Bob Mueller quickly rolled up all these different ongoing investigations that were related to the Russia matter or the Trump campaign. He put them all under the purview of his ongoing special counsel investigation. He rolled up the ongoing investigation of Trump National Security Advisor Mike Flynn. Jerry produced grand jury subpoenas for financial and business information related to Flynn and his company. Mueller took that investigation over. Mueller also took over the ongoing investigation into Trump campaign chair Paul Manafort, an investigation that also had already produced subpoenas from a federal grand jury. Also absorbed that relatively new obstruction of justice inquiry that the FBI started after James Comey was fired. And, of course, Robert Mueller absorbed the big one. The big Russia inquiry that the FBI started last summer into the Russian attack and the Trump campaign's possible collusion with that attack. Well, that inquiry, that Russia part,
wait for it,
of the investigation, that was reportedly being run by Peter Strzok, head of the counterespionage section at the FBI. Or at least he was the head of the counterespionage section at the FBI. Today, ABC News reports that Peter Strzok not only isn't running the Russia part of the FBI investigation anymore, ABC is reporting that he is no longer part of the Mueller inquiry at all. And according to ABC, while Mr. Strzok might have previously run the counterespionage section at the FBI, now they report he's working in human resources.
Oh, I shouldn't be laughing. Oh, that's awesome, man. So, Mr. Stroke. That's a Z behind a TR. That is a Scythian name when it ends with Zok. Okay. That's a reference to their ancient version of Thor. But anyways, in the pronunciation, the Z behind the R, TR, is pronounced like a J. Sort of like you would pronounce the J as a Y in a Slavic dialect, okay? So that's Zdrok. Kinda. But like with more of like an R, like a rolled R. Anyways. So basically he could be, just judging from that last name, he could be Gorka's cousin. He could be Kadyrov, Putin's. He could be like an actual, you know, kind of demon prince of sorts, basically. Now, the reason why he's in human resources should be clear to those of us who have been wondering, why is it that their investigation seemed incompetent? Just didn't seem to have the guts to do anything. Just didn't seem to want to take the side of America, for fuck's sake. Well, I think now we know what was blocking that door from opening. What was the plank in the eye that kept on pointing towards tiny splinters and cost us our country? The whole slogan, take our country back, even make America great again, has never been so true as it is for the resistance.
And nothing against human resources, but what happened there? I mean, that was like you were the principal, and now all of a sudden you're working in the cafeteria. What happened there? I mean, this is a single report from ABC News. Other news outlets today have echoed this reporting, but nobody's independently confirmed it. We contacted the special counsel's office today to see if they would either confirm or deny this reporting from ABC or give us any comment on it, tell us anything about Peter Strzok's role in the investigation and whether it continues, why it might have changed as dramatically as ABC is reporting that it did. Special counsel's office would not talk to us about it at all.
Oh no,
Oh
no, they
this should be, I guess this could be the first indication of trouble, or at least bumps in the road when it comes to the Robert Mueller inquiry.
No.
And I would love to tell you.
I think this is a sign that it's moving into its final stages. Okay? And I'm not going to detail out my reasoning behind that, but I have... you'd love to hear it if I felt like I could say it without fucking anything up for anybody.
More about what this means. I would love to tell you whether or not this really indicates that there's something wrong inside the Mueller investigation. I'd love to give you any further information about this strange new piece of news that I could, but I...
Wait a minute. Huh. Rachel.
Can't. Because the one thing I can confirm is that the Mueller investigation is not very leaky. At least not to us or to anybody that we know or work with.
I can't hear leaky or leaks without thinking of hookers pissing on Donald Trump.
We squeeze, we cajole, we wheedle. We really can't get anything out of them at all, even when a competing news organization has put out a very provocative report. So, we will wait to find out more. The New York Times this morning did report that the FBI investigation being led by Robert Mueller, it might have its first actual human witness for the Russian side of the Russian attack on the election. It's a Ukrainian hacker. He's a guy who produces code and malware and hacking tools and sells them online. He does not appear to have wittingly worked with the Russian government in their attack on the Democratic Party in the Clinton campaign last year, but apparently some of his code is what the Russian military intelligence unit that carried out the attack, it's what they used as their weapon to attack the DNC. Well, the guy who created that weapon, the guy who created that code, he's now reportedly working with Ukrainian officials and, more or less, cooperating with the FBI in their investigation. And that's important because that's apparently the first time they've had a human material witness for the technical part of the Russian government's hacking attack. Their effort to hack into and steal information from the Democratic Party and the Clinton campaign and turn it back to the American public in a way that was designed to help Donald Trump.
And the stuff that they fake is, you know, like they've altered the documents that they've released to make them look worse. They've even done selective censorship on, like, the Clinton speeches to the little group of people, whatever, to make them look worse. But they're very clever about how they fake things to make it harder to find the truth behind them and to just reveal enough to where that in order for people to debunk it, for instance, in order for Hillary Clinton and people with classified clearance to debunk things, they would have to reveal classified information or sources or methods. They're that clever. And that's why I am so pissed off at people like Chaffetz and Gowdy and just like fucking Republicans in general. God, they're so disgusting. They've abandoned the defense of their country just to take down someone that they only hate because Russian propaganda told them to. How fucking sad is that?
And while that news about that cooperating witness is interesting in terms of how that Mueller investigation is unfolding and what they've got to work with, turns out it also comes with a stark and somewhat stomach-churning reminder of why there's a real sense of urgency to this investigation.
Sweet, eh?
Not just to make sure justice is done and people are brought to account for that Russian attack, And we all come to know if there are American Confederates in our midst or in our government who knowingly helped with that Russian attack. That all gives it some urgency. But the other reason there's no sense of urgency to getting this thing done, to getting this investigation followed to the end, is because it does not appear, it really doesn't appear, that the Russian attack is over. And we've got some disturbing new information about that today, and that story's next.
And again, make sure you share that video about Russian InfoWar tactics still being used in U.S. from 4 months ago. It's 20 minutes long and it's on MSNBC's channel.
The Russian military intelligence unit that carried out the DNC hack, that group is nicknamed Fancy Bear. And they're apparently still working now.
This one and the one she's about to mention have been a familiar problem for me since before I got on here on YouTube. That was something that basically the Ukrainians helped expose after the Maidan happened and the provisional government in Ukraine was established.
Summer. Still against us, the American public. Still on behalf of Donald Trump's interests. Right after we learned last month about the Trump Tower meeting between Donald Trump's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., and his campaign chair Paul Manafort and his son-in-law Jared Kushner, along with all those various Russians who were promising Russian government dirt on Hillary Clinton.
Fucking Russians everywhere.
Trump Tower meeting. You might remember that the Trump White House launched kind of a PR counteroffensive to try to blunt the impact of that news. And a little bit of it was defense. They tried to excuse the meeting, dismiss it as no big deal. Remember, they kind of argued that, oh, anybody would have taken that meeting. It's common political practice. Everybody always takes OPPO research on their political enemies from Putin. Who among us doesn't tap the Russian government whenever we need dirt on a fellow American? Right. They did mount a little bit of a defense, but the Trump White House hates playing defense as much as anybody in politics. And so, alongside that kind of sad defense, they also simultaneously launched a counter-offensive in which they claimed actually that the real scandal, the real foreign collusion, was done by Hillary Clinton. It was the Hillary Clinton campaign that colluded with a foreign power. I'm rubber, you're glue. White House officials, the president's Russian legal team, multiple shows on the Fox News channel, the White House spokesperson speaking from the briefing room, they all started echoing this same counterclaim that there was no collusion scandal involving the Trump campaign in Russia. The real scandal was Hillary Clinton colluding with a whole different country.
Again, cooperating with an ally in a time of aggression again by Vladimir Putin, who commands America's age-old nemesis, who was royally aligned with Great Britain when they invaded in 1812, who is descendant of cousins of King George himself, who is a KGB officer, headed the KGB after orchestrating the collapse of the Berlin Wall as a method of not only infiltrating the West, but reverting to a new strategy of promoting neo-fascist groups in Europe and in America. Something that they had an odd amount of experience to apply when they first got started. But their involvement goes back into our Civil War. They've kind of regretted the rate at which they explored and then abandoned the land over here. It's always been kind of their thing, and they think they should own this one day, period. And during the Cold War, Vladimir Putin was a KGB master spy, and then because his plan worked, because he humiliated us, because his strategy worked, he was allowed to, and then consolidated so much power that he became the richest man on earth. And basically, there is hardly any crime in the world, there's hardly any crime in organized fashion, hierarchical, mafios type crime, that does not happen without his approval. Like, I mean, there's nothing that goes on that isn't under his thumb as far as mafia shit goes. And that goes all the way into the fucking rainforest in South America, okay? Don't think anywhere in Asia is safe, for fuck's sake. They have people of every culture that speak every language. They have entire communities of them to choose from. And they all will toe the same line. That overwhelming, terrifying adversary is who the Hillary Clinton campaign cooperated with our ally in order to gain information on the infiltrator that they sent here to destroy our government, our governing processes, our rule of law, our decency, our dignity, and more importantly, prove that our values mean nothing to us, or to at least, a large majority of us. That what is first and foremost is that we want money, okay? Because that's what Donald Trump's election represents. If you want to say that Donald Trump is president, okay, what you're saying is that America is not a moral country. It is not a country that is ruled by laws. It is a country that is first and foremost about corrupt wealth. And that is not America to me. And I won't let it become that.
The White House on offense against what the president calls a, quote, disgraceful double standard. Team Trump pointing out that Democrats' own alleged coordination happened with foreign governments. Watch this.
I do know for a fact that Democratic Party operatives went to the Ukrainian embassy to coordinate oppositional research and attacks against our campaign. So that's a story.
The double standard is upsetting. I mean, you see it every day. I'd love to rant and rave about it, but candidly right now, with everything that's going on, I think that people see it.
Is anybody saying, by the way, why did the DNC have their operatives meeting with the Ukrainians and actually getting information? Why is that not one standard and this is another?
Christian Fisher live in Washington tonight with the backstory on the DNC.
Hey, Gorka. Prima Krieg Nekti.
Alleged ties to the Ukraine.
Live in Washington tonight. That was Fox News Channel on July 12th. And that on July 12th, that started like 5 straight days on the Fox News Channel of them hyping this story, that the real collusion was Hillary Clinton's collusion. But that day, July 12th, a website called Cyber Berkut, B-E-R-K-U-T, Cyber Berkut, started posting what they said were stolen Hillary Clinton emails that proved this story, that bolstered this story, that the Clinton campaign and Ukraine secretly colluded and worked together during the election. Cyber Berkut posted.
A lot of the trolls that we've dealt with, if you've helped me deal with trolls, that's where they come from.
That stuff, those supposed stolen emails from the Clinton campaign on July 12th. Which is when Fox News started going nuts on this stuff. Cyber Berkut is believed by experts to be the Russian government. They are believed to be the latest online alter ego of Fancy Bear, the Russian military intelligence unit that hacked the DNC in the first place, that took all those Democratic Party stolen documents.
And if you're not familiar, what Berkut means, the reason why they're calling themselves that is they're self-professing their job as the bullying police. That's the cyber bully police. Not policing cyber bullies. No, they're the ones doing the bullies. And that's how they police information, is by harassing people who are trying to spread truth.
they obtained by hacking and then fed them back into the U.S. political system, into the U.S. media, in a way that was designed to help Donald Trump and hurt Democrats. That's what they did during the election. They apparently are still at it this summer. They are still feeding anti-Democratic, anti-Hillary Clinton storylines culled from materials that they hacked from the Clinton campaign and the DNC. They're feeding them back into what isn't a campaign anymore, but is still a U.S. political system and a U.S. conservative media universe that will do all they can to help the Trump administration, apparently no matter the source of their information. Now, it's interesting. Fox News really started pushing this stuff on July 12th, the day that this Front for Russian Military Intelligence started putting out its own data to support this story. The White House actually started pushing it 2 days before that. Out of the blue, the White House resurrected these old claims that hadn't been circulating anywhere for months about Hillary Clinton being the real colluder, and the real collusion being Clinton and Ukraine. The White House started that on the 10th of July. They were like the on-ramp. And within 2 days, this Russian military intelligence unit was feeding that stream of information with stolen emails. And then Fox News and other conservative media outlets picked it up and ran with it, and now your conservative uncle, who types with a caps lock key on and forwards you stuff from Breitbart and watches Fox News all day, he believes that there are 2 collusion scandals, if there are any. And the one where we've got the real proof is the one with Hillary Clinton. This presidency right now is in a rocky period for a lot of reasons, most of them, all of them self-imposed. But nobody's quitting the administration, nobody's resigning, nobody in active Republican politics is calling on the president to resign or anything that dramatic. The continuing existential threat to this presidency remains the special counsel investigation into the Russia issue led by Robert Mueller. And today there are both intriguing and strange signs that there may be stuff going on inside that inquiry that we don't understand and that may not be a good sign for that inquiry. And we've got a fresh look at how the Russian attack that started this whole crisis and that started this whole investigation, it continues to operate on Donald Trump's behalf, and with crucial amplification from the White House itself and from the conservative media universe that supports it. It's not over. Stay with us. A trio of Democrats in Congress, Democrats in the House, on Friday, the day after tomorrow, they'll introduce this new piece of legislation. It's a proposed censure of the president for what they call his inadequate response to the white supremacist neo-Nazi rally in Charlottesville, Virginia over the weekend. Democrats say they want to reprimand him for not, quote, immediately and specifically naming and condemning the white supremacist groups. Now, in the grand scheme of things, in terms of the ways we've got as a country to hold a president accountable, a censure is like kind of a baby step. It's like the first rung on the ladder, right? It's basically a strongly worded letter from Congress. The major consequence of a censure is that historians will make a mental note that it happened. It's literally the least lawmakers could do if they wanted to respond negatively to show displeasure with the president's defense of white supremacists yesterday. Actually, I guess I should correct that. We sort of found out last night that this is the least lawmakers can do to denounce what the president did. They can send out some strongly worded tweets that don't actually mention the president by name, but make it very clear that they themselves aren't cool with Nazis, okay? Nothing else to say about it, or the president, or whatever he might have said, but just a heads up, don't like Nazis, all right? That's the least you can do. On a scale of congressional responses to a thing like this, a censure is like a fraction of a percent stronger than one of those pointless tweets. I mean, it would be a thing that happened. It would have no real consequence. But if Congress wants to do it, they would have to actually pass this censure like an actual bill. Assuming every Democrat in the House would vote to pass this thing, assuming Paul Ryan would agree to put it on the floor, Democrats would have to scrounge up 24 Republican yes votes in order for it to pass. And so this is a test. It ought to be a pretty easy test in reasonable times. Republicans will have to decide now how much they want to be associated with what the president did yesterday and what he said yesterday. Voting for censure would be one easy, uncomplicated, practically non-consequential way that they could do that. to say that they did something, anything, however insignificant it might turn out to be in practical terms. It is almost the least they could do. I don't think anybody believes they could manage to pull it off. Joining us now is Sherilyn Eiffel. She's president and director counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. I'm so glad you're here in person, Sherilyn. It's really nice to see you. We haven't spoken since the events of this weekend, so I just wanted first just to get your...
So, right quick before they get into that interview, and I didn't actually get to pay much attention to that part because I thought that it would be, I think I was correct in thinking that it would be uploaded by itself on the MSNBC channel. So I will typically, when I know I can watch something there, I'll go ahead and watch it there, because otherwise I'll go through and just make sure I watch each one and like each one just to help MSNBC's channel out. Anybody has any questions about everything she just reported on, feel free to ask. Maybe we can discuss it here. But I hope if you can, if you guys can figure out whatever different ways, or send it to Rachel.com or on Twitter to tag her and link this video, how I kind of showed y'all that the other copies of this video that had gone up just all kind of disappeared. There's a lot of things that show up with MSNBC icon, take you to a CNN video, and it's just weird how much YouTube is in the tank for not so much just like keeping Trump in power, but keeping like the real truth of the matter from coming up. And man, that last video, they just wiped that. I watched several different versions of it, trying to find a complete version of it. They were all broken up and mixed with ones from the previous broadcast, mixed with parts of the previous broadcast. And they just all disappeared. Like Jim Kelly, all those different little channels I listed, they had it. They had, you know, the episode with the date and everything. And their uploads were a little bit shorter than this, and then they didn't show everything all on one video. Like this one actually is pretty complete. I didn't even notice any hard cuts in it. But there were some bits of that I had to go to other videos to find. But y'all can probably see why this video would be suppressed. And I just want Rachel Maddow to know that it was suppressed. And also, speaking of the finger snap earlier, and Rachel Maddow, there should be maybe a Disney voice offer coming your way soon, Miss Rachel, because they seem to stalk me at the very least. Otherwise, the muses just kind of have their way with the Disney Corporation. And I expect there to be some sort of innocent parody on what's gone on here. Possibly a new version of The Emperor Has No Clothes. Wouldn't that be appropriate? Comcast, Emily says, seems to be messing with her MSNBC signal in real time. Also, weird. Yes, I agree. Quite weird. Can you guys hear me speaking right now? Like, have y'all been hearing me speak? Yeah, okay. Huh. Pedro, what just happened to you? Or are you just verifying her coincidence? Because, yeah, a lot of such coincidences seem to happen, don't they? See, what's happening, just like she said, and she was very vague about it, what's happening is the few people that are in that White House. Oh, and look at my fucking viewers drop. Look, I got 4 on now. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, coincidences. Pedro says the broadcast went offline for him. So what's been going on is people like Gorka and Bannon are basically coordinating with their propaganda needs and telling them who to try to suppress, etc., when they need them suppressed, what keywords to use. That's a lot of what goes on. And I actually think that one of Kuchner's contributions is keywording. You know, metadata. And basically how to specifically target different areas and different people, different groups, different organizations, and try to control the media or the information that they can give and receive. So it's stifling democracy in real time. Basically, they are committing acts of cyber terror, coordinating them through the White House. It's been ongoing, and it needs to stop. Yeah, if you don't see a message that you type, one of Kushner's contributions that I said was metadata. He's the guy who helps them, those old guys, Gorka, not particularly Gorka, he's pretty good at it, but Bannon, come up with keywords. What I think Bannon used to do is kind of radio work, train people to do radio work that from the mid to late 90s skewed people's ratings. Primarily 2 shows. Fox News, well, Fox News is the channel, and one that he was personally invested in, Seinfeld. That's why the bandwagon effect became so crucial to Seinfeld's success. And after that's when he got involved in Breitbart. Breitbart, of course, being central to the Lewinsky scandal. And Kellyanne Conway involved with them and the drug. and he made a pretty penny off of that. And also, you have to do something that seems innocent and for personal gain in case you get caught doing the treasonous thing, you know? Okay. Yeah, well, there's also the Barcelona car vehicular event, and I'm sure we'll see Trump call that a terrorist attack immediately, and still, you know, be, you know, knowing that he's going to be asked, well, wait, but why wasn't the, you know, why wasn't Heather Heyer's death a terrorist attack? Yeah, y'all's view, it's down to 3 watching right now. I'm suddenly, for no reason, having high CPU usage detected. I'm gonna turn off my cell phone, see if that helps, or at least my Wi-Fi on my cell phone. Yeah, Emily says, who got bumped? Whoever just got bumped, say me. Who wants to wish for the snow crystal? Me. Dropped frames detected. Okay, well, you know, feel free to keep chatting. I'll pause if y'all have any questions or anything, and I think I said everything I wanted to interject with, but if I press play, it's possible that the algorithmic compression will help my stream as opposed to my download-upload rate being overwhelmed. Let's see if that theory works.
Top line reaction and how you're feeling these days after.
Well, I'm pretty enraged, actually. I'm pretty furious because I think, you know, anybody who was paying attention could have seen that what was going to happen this weekend was going to be something violent, was going to be something ugly. And not just what happened in Charlottesville, but the atmosphere that has been created by this president, even when he was a candidate, and that really has been allowed by those in Congress and other leaders, where he has essentially unleashed something that we have all known exists in the United States. You can't be, as I am, a civil rights lawyer without knowing that there is this element in this country and has been for a very long time. But what we have usually seen is a sense of responsibility by national leaders, a sense of responsibility by members of Congress, a sense of responsibility by the president, that even if they are on the right, there's a line that doesn't get crossed. And what you just described, you know, the unwillingness of members of Congress to do more than tweet, to do more than make oblique references, you know, to hate, disembodied hate, without actually identifying who's doing the hating. Talking about, you know, all sides, as the president did, or many sides, or both sides. This is a complete abdication of responsibility for leading this country, because this country is stitched together of many pieces, and it's a patchwork, and it's been difficult. There's been bloodshed to bring us to the point that we're at today, which is not Shangri-La, but it certainly is not 1860, and it's certainly not 1954. That took blood. That took sweat, that took lawsuits, that took sit-ins, that took sacrifice to bring us to that point. And what we're seeing is the willingness of leaders to kind of cavalierly allow it to be dissipated. And that makes me very angry. What I also am is very resolute that we will not be palmed off by tweets, by expressions of outrage, by expressions of condemnation, That's the least you can do. As you said, I have to say yesterday, the president's remarks pretty much jumped the shark. I mean, I had been part of the group that was saying, you know, get the white nationalists out of the cabinet, fire Bannon, fire Gorka. At this point, it's the president. It's the president. So now we have three branches of government. We have a Congress that has to take responsibility for what they can do, not what they can say. And there actually are things they can do if they're willing to do it, if they mean what they say. If Paul Ryan really says that he's repulsed by white supremacy, if members of Congress, you know, Republicans and Democrats have tweeted about, you know, white supremacy and we don't stand with this, then let's talk about what white supremacy actually is. Let's talk about federal courts finding that the state legislature of Texas and the state legislature of North Carolina created voter suppression laws for the purpose of discriminating against black and Latino voters. That is white supremacy.
Amen.
In action. In action. Yeah. So where have they been on that? What has Paul Ryan said? We can't even get Representative Bob Goodlatte from Virginia, who issued a statement condemning the Charlottesville rally, to give us a hearing on amending the Voting Rights Act to deal with the voter suppression that has arisen since the Shelby County decision. Where's the oversight of the Justice Department? Do we just really trust Jeff Sessions to prioritize hate crimes and to prioritize the investigation of these white supremacist groups? No, we need Congress to now schedule oversight hearings of the Department of Justice, of the Department of Homeland Security, specifically to find out from them what resources are they allocating to this. We know that Jeff Sessions is allocating resources to ending affirmative action, to challenging sanctuary cities, I mean, to MS-13. He's identified his priorities. I haven't heard hate crimes and white supremacy as part of that prioritization. That's Congress's job to make sure that the Department of Justice is properly prioritizing those things. So these are the actual, tangible things that Congress can do. We've been putting them up on our website. We put it on our Twitter timeline because I'm afraid that the window's going to close. This is not a situation that can be resolved with platitudes. You know, Heather Heyer is dead. She was killed. People were injured. Our children, members of this country, have seen swastikas on flags and Nazi flags. We've heard homophobic slurs. We've heard racial slurs. We've heard anti-Semitic slurs in Charlottesville, Virginia. And if they think that we're going to move past this as though this is just a political moment, this is an American moment.
Amen.
And if people really care about this democracy and if leaders have been elected to lead this country, then we have the right to expect of them that they will use the powers they have. I understand that their powers are limited, but they do have power, and they must use that power in this moment to get America back on track.
Sherilyn Ifill, President and Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. May I ask you to stay for just one moment? I want to talk to you. I have one question for you about what this behavior by the president does to the far right in terms of whether it makes them more capable of achieving their aims. We'll be right back with Sherilyn Ifill right after this. Stay with us. Joining us once again is Sherilyn Ifill. She is the President and the Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Sherilyn, thank you for staying here. I have a question for you that I'm really struggling with. I've asked it a number of times on the air this week, and it's not a rhetorical question. I don't know how to get at the answer, though, because I feel like it's uncharted territory for this century.
Okay.
Which is, the president made these remarks that bolstered a movement that waxes and wanes in our country but never goes away, this white supremacist, white nationalist, white separatist, neo-Nazi movement. I think it's deliberate. I think he's doing it on purpose. I don't think he's screwing up. And my question, the thing that I can't foresee and I'm worried about, is how it changes those groups and their power and their ability to achieve their designs that he has done this. How do you think we can try to either imagine that or foresee that?
Well, I think that the isolation of the president and keeping him small to the extent that he is trying to engage in these actions, you know, is really important, and I think it's already happening. Remember when the president tweeted out his attempt to create a transgender ban in the military, and the general said the next day, no, don't listen to him, we're studying this thing, right? Yeah. There are these ways in which when he steps out and he tries to make a move, when there's pushback, it contains him. And I think that people have to be ready to stand up and contain him. This is, the Election Integrity Commission, where the commission asked for the information from 50 states, right, about every voter in this country. And initially, 40 of those states said, no, we're not going to do it. This goes back to, like, what Congress can do, what governors can do. That's the kind of thing you do to push back and say, is this the guy you want to give all of that information? And you do bring these lawsuits. It's the Muslim ban, and look at what has happened with that. So I think one of the things we have to be very careful about is he's got the bully pulpit, no question about that. We can't stop him from saying what he's saying, activating these groups, making them feel powerful, making them feel that they have a home in the White House. But what we can use is the principal tool we have to, when we don't have norms and when we don't have ethics, we use law. That's number one. So you've got to litigate the heck out of this, and I think that groups like my organization and the ACLU and the attorney generals who are doing it are doing that, are trying to hold that line. When you see the military saying, no, you're not going to tweet out some new thing that we haven't figured out, you're seeing some of that resistance. And then I think the last part is just mobilization on the ground. I think that, as we get to this, to the end of August, we've heard the president was planning to have a big rally in Phoenix, which is, could it be more irresponsible for him to be holding a rally at this point? The mayor of Phoenix has asked the president not to hold the rally. There will be a big rally on August 28th.
No, let him hold the rally and let a bunch of neo-Nazis show up. Please. Yeah. It'll be great. Especially if, like, the same people who watch Fox News and just don't know what the fuck is going on have the courage to have a problem with the neo-Nazis. And, that goes well.
The anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech and the March on Washington, when people who believe in justice and equality will be in this country showing themselves. So I think putting all of those pieces together is about containment. And then we have to remember that there's still an ongoing investigation by Robert Mueller, and we don't know what's going to happen there. And there are other ways in which this president can be constrained. But it begins with Congress doing its job to stand up to this president, to exercise their authority, to protect this republic, and it's not with words, it's with deeds.
Cheryl Eiffel is the president and director counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. NAACP Legal Defense Fund is a national treasure, obviously. So are you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Rachel. Thank you. Thanks. We'll be right back.
I wonder if that is any relation to Gwen Eiffel. Is that the same way that name is spelled? If that's her daughter or something, I mean, whoever she is, she's doing Gwen proud, that's for sure. She'd have my vote if she ran for president, shit.
In a park across the street from City Hall in Birmingham, Alabama, there is a Confederate monument. It's 52 feet tall. Dedicated to Confederate soldiers and sailors. It was dedicated to them 40 years after the end of the Civil War. Earlier this year, after some Confederate monuments were removed in other states, Alabama passed a law called the Alabama Memorial Preservation Act, which legally bans, quote, the relocation, removal, alteration, renaming, or other disturbance of any architecturally significant building, memorial street, or monument located on public property, which has been in place for 40 or more years. In other words, hey, Birmingham, don't even think about moving that Confederate monument that got put up in 1905. Well, yesterday, on order from Birmingham's mayor, William Bell, that Confederate monument across from City Hall, it wasn't removed, it was covered up in tarps and plywood. 45 minutes later, voila, that plaque dedicated to Confederate soldiers and sailors was out of sight, at least at eye height. Today, the Alabama Attorney General's office filed a lawsuit against Birmingham and against their mayor, William Bell, for violating that new state law, saying the Attorney General has determined that defendants have altered or otherwise disturbed the Lynn Park Memorial. Joining us now is William Bell. He's the mayor of Birmingham, Alabama. Mayor Bell, it's really good to have you with us tonight, sir. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for having me, Rachel.
Let me ask if you expected this lawsuit from the Alabama Attorney General, or if you thought that your actions with that monument might have been outside the scope of that Alabama law.
No, we knew that we would be, some action would be taken against the city and me as the mayor of the city by the state attorney general.
Why was it important to you to cover it up, to take this action?
Well, I think what we saw over the weekend in Charlottesville was an indication of the direction that this country was going in as it related to monuments of this nature by the emboldenment of the president of these hate groups. We felt that it was just a matter of time that statues and monuments in Alabama would also become the focal point. When you realize what that represents, the subjugation of human beings, the sedition of a section of our country, and treasonous acts, you realize that such a monument really doesn't have any place in our society at this day and time.
I spent some time in Birmingham. I know that it's a cosmopolitan city. It's a youthful city.
Yes.
It's a good place to spend time. It's got a great nightlife. I'm wondering, what's the discussion like in your city? And are there factions of people who feel strongly about this? Are there going to be demonstrations? Is there a lot of dissent over this decision?
I have not seen that. In fact, as I've made my way through the city today, I've heard nothing but positive comments about it. And let me emphasize, we're not in the process of moving the monument. We're looking at how we can tell the true story of what it represents. Right now, it's a standalone item that touts the participation in the Civil War. But what people have to understand about Birmingham is that Birmingham is not a Civil War city. We did not exist until after the Civil War. Now, we are a civil rights city that was the center of the human and civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s. In fact, Birmingham was the epicenter of the civil rights movement. And as such, we don't really have an attachment to the Civil War from that perspective. So we felt that it was an anathema to our city to have such a monument on exhibition.
William Bell, the mayor of Birmingham, Alabama, now being sued by that state's attorney general over this decision to cover that monument. Please keep in touch with us over the next few days, sir, and as this fight unfolds, we'd love to stay in touch with you as this continues to unspool in your city and your state. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us. Here's a weird one. Today, Vice President Mike Pence announced that he's cutting short his foreign trip to Central and South America. He's cutting short this trip he's on now. He's coming home early because he says he wants to go to a meeting at Camp David about Afghanistan. That's a meeting the White House only announced today. Why can't Mike Pence just call into the meeting? I don't know, but he's cutting short his trip and rushing home. He was due to be in South America and Central America all week, but now he's going to skip out on a planned dinner with the president of Panama. He's going to leave early. He's leaving tomorrow night. And once he's back in the United States, he's canceling the things he was going to do in the United States as well. His office announcing now that he's also going to cancel 2 political appearances he was going to make in Virginia on Saturday. Now, we don't know why this is happening. It's possible, of course, that the vice president is homesick, or maybe he caught a bug. I don't know.
Dun 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 dun. Oh, at least he was working on. Politics, eh? I consider it the defense of our nation. But, you know, I've been paying attention longer than this dumbass election went on. So, let's see how I'm going to do this here. Okay, can you hear me now? As big as that gets, no matter about that. Let's put my head in the middle. The echo is back? Oh, for fuck's sake. Did that take care of the echo? My goodness. How about that? Echo. Echoey, echo. Interesting. And now I suppose it's back the way it was before. And now how is it? My headache's back again. How is it? Blah. Fuck's sake. Maybe I'll change the microphone of this to the webcam 250. How about this? How about that? Okay, how about now? Now. How about now? Just going into fucking autopilot with this shit. This is how it was to begin with. For fuck's sake. Okay. So, I just wanted to get that right so I could effectively start whatever broadcast I did next. Because apparently, I'm just going to scroll through some news on the subscriptions, recently uploaded things. Vehicle hits pedestrians in Barcelona. Do y'all want me to put on the audios and y'all keep chatting? Because I need to eat. So I have some Pop-Tarts, so I'm going to eat them. Police have found a passport in the van. according to Democracy Now!, a Fargo town has disowned one of the white nationalists that went to Virginia. Okay, I can eat. Alright. Now joining the ABC News live stream in progress. I would like to ask for fair use of this stream for archival and critical commentary purposes.
A lot of tourists and a lot of people who live here have cleared the streets. Everyone waiting in the lobby of hotels, the front areas of restaurants, looking on, trying to figure out what happened. But everyone's definitely very alarmed and very scared because there's still reports of these guys on the loose, and that's what a lot of people in my general area have been talking about. They're still not sure exactly what happened or what the situation is, but the streets are very clear. A lot of the restaurants have closed their doors or closed the front areas of their restaurants so nobody can come in, and everyone's waiting for word from police on when this incident is over.
All right, well, stay safe, and please let us know if you hear any additional information. Will Gretzky of ABC News in Barcelona, and he is one of those told to just get out of the area, and was bussed back to his hotel just a few blocks from the scene in Catalonia Square in Las Ramblas in Barcelona, where this apparent attack took place a short while ago, about 5 o'clock in the evening. ABC News consultant Brad Garrett, formerly of the FBI, is with us. Brad, this possibility of a hostage situation and people hold up, this isn't going to end well.
It's not going to end well, and the key is going to be for the negotiators to keep these guys talking, even if they know it's not going to go anywhere, because the longer, in the short run, they can spread this out, the more intel they can gather and figure out ways to possibly do a dynamic entry or get them into a vulnerable situation or position where they can shoot them, because that's really kind of end up being your options. The other wider optic on this is one would hope that they've figured out potentially who they are, because you want to know if they have legs or links to somebody else that's in some other location that also wants to do something. So you got a lot of moving parts here, but you've got those two primary parts going on. Who are these guys? Are they connected? And are there other potential attacks out there sort of in the waiting?
ABC's law enforcement consultant Brad Garrett, formerly of the FBI, and we've seen this movie before, Brad, in other cities. It's a complicated political picture, I guess, in Spain, but the procedure's the same as far as law enforcement's concerned. We're just seeing some images of police, guns drawn, going into these restaurants nearby looking for perpetrators.
Correct. But the real key is going to be, in my view, do they have a unit that's actually trained to handle these situations? Because what you want to do, obviously, is not have anybody else harmed other than the bad guys. And we have seen in a number of different jurisdictions across the world where they end up storming a place, other people die. And, that may end up, we obviously hope that doesn't happen, but you could end up with that in this situation. So we'll see how well, the Barcelona authorities, I'm going to guess, counterterrorism units and even the military, if they have specialty units, are involved in trying to figure out what they have and how they can make this go away without other people dying other than the bad guys.
Brad Garrett, formerly of the FBI, now an ABC News consultant on law enforcement matters, such as the one in Barcelona that we are now following. Deaths, injuries, now a hostage situation in a nearby restaurant to where a van crashed into a crowd of pedestrians out in a summer evening. ABC's Scott Goldberg, who's just back from Barcelona, following the developments with us. Scott?
And Aaron, I'm saying that there's word from the
government of Catalunya, the province where this happened, where Barcelona is, that there's going to be a spokesperson from the police updating this. And they say 7 o'clock local time, so that would be about 15 minutes from now. We might start to get some more clarity. We're going based on official tweets and eyewitness accounts, and the police have said so far that yes, there are deaths as a result of this van attack. They're investigating it as a terror attack, and they said although they don't know the motive, they had a terror attack response plan that they put into place as soon as this started. So add that information to the reports of someone with a gun in a nearby restaurant, a hostage situation, and know that because this was such a busy area in the heart of the city, a major tourist destination, you had a massive police presence to begin with, and they would have just started doing their jobs immediately as soon as this happened.
Yeah, the police were on the scene very quickly and closed off a broad swath of Las Ramblas, to the point where our cameras that we're watching cannot even see fully down toward where this van crash happened in Catalonia Square. Pedestrians were quickly cleared out of the area as police stretched crime tape across the sidewalk. Other pedestrians were told to either get out or in some cases told to shelter in place. Catalonia police are still not calling this terrorism. They have not confirmed a motive, but they have activated their response plan for a terror attack. So they're certainly treating this like an attack, and they are now dealing with a potential hostage situation in a nearby restaurant or bar. This all happened at about 5 o'clock in the evening local time, when crowds of tourists and residents would be out on a summer evening in Las Ramblas, the heart of Barcelona, and police are confirming deaths as well as injuries. They have not put any numbers to this, but as Scott says, the Interior Ministry of Spain, a short time from now, is expected to brief reporters, and perhaps we'll get a little more clarity. In the meantime, I want to turn back to John Cohen, formerly of the Department of Homeland Security, for his thoughts as we watch this unfold. John?
Yeah, Aaron, I think again, as we've been discussing, and to build on what Brad Garrett was saying, police will want to gain control of the situation and hopefully be dealing with a situation that will involve a negotiation. Because the goal here is to prevent any additional injuries or deaths, except, as you pointed out, of the bad guys. But again, typically, in ISIS or Al-Qaeda inspired attacks of late, your secondary attack would be, efforts by the people in this case driving the van to begin killing people right away. So the fact that we haven't seen that, have not seen that yet, is somewhat encouraging. But again, police will want to gain control of the situation. They want to make sure they have as much information and intelligence as they can acquire about the suspects. They will seek to engage in negotiation, and they'll make a judgment call whether they'll try to go the negotiation route, stretch this thing out, and try to get the hostages released, or whether they're going to need to go in and make entry and take out the suspects.
John Cohen, formerly of the Department of Homeland Security, now an ABC News consultant. Spanish radio is reporting as many as 13 deaths, but that number has not been independently confirmed by ABC News as we await Spanish police and a briefing that they said would come within the next several minutes to give us some additional clarity. They've only said there are deaths and there are injuries after this van plowed into a crowd in Barcelona at about 5 o'clock on a summer evening in a crowded spot in the heart of the city. Our foreign desk is staffed by Tom Rivers in London. Tom, what are you hearing?
Yeah, hearing that development as well. Very, very chilling from local radio in Barcelona on the what they say is the death toll. Anecdotally, people that saw this van said that literally dozens of people.
Some sort of large bird of prey just cast a shadow over my house.
Anecdotally, people that saw this van said that literally dozens of people had been in his path. So that's a very high number. But as you say, we're waiting for the police to come forward and give us a briefing. Of course, all of the focus right now is on this restaurant. What is happening inside there? How are the police engaging with these individuals inside? That's going to be the focus right now.
Tom Rivers, at our foreign desk in London, we are just being told from our White House troops that the Chief of Staff, General John Kelly, has been made aware of what's going on in Barcelona and is keeping the president abreast as we continue to follow these developments. The driver of the van appears to have fled on foot, possibly with an accomplice, and there is what Spanish police have called a hostage situation underway in a nearby restaurant or bar. Negotiations are said to be underway. Eyewitnesses who saw the van ramming into people said they saw a number of those on the ground, a lot of ambulances, police with assault rifles. We saw, in fact, some images of police with long guns drawn, hunting for suspects after the driver of the van and this possible accomplice fled into a restaurant. Vehicles have been used to ram into crowds in a series of attacks across Europe, even in this country, since July of last year. And so Brad Garrett, formerly of the FBI and now an ABC News consultant, this does fit a pattern, even as we wait for Spanish police to officially call this one thing or another.
Of course, and it certainly, Aaron, fits the pattern of something simplistic.
This is an ABC News special report. Good afternoon, I'm Tom Yalmas. We continue to follow breaking news out of Europe, what is looking more and more like a terror attack in the heart of Barcelona. Police there tell us a van apparently rammed into several people that were walking along one of its busiest areas, Las Ramblas. Essentially, this is the 5th Avenue of Barcelona in the heart of the city there. We're being very careful with some of the images we're showing you because there are multiple victims that are laid out all across the floor. At this point right now, we understand that multiple people have died and there are several other victims. Now, one eyewitness telling Spanish media that this looked like the van came in speeding off a side street and just plowed into several people for 50 yards, basically plowing over them like corn. People went airborne. Our Terry Moran, our chief foreign correspondent, has been monitoring all these developments. And Terry, this is still an active situation because we understand the driver and possibly at least one other person are now holed up in a restaurant.
That's right, Tom. This is an ongoing fluid attack. A terror attack is what Spanish police are now calling this situation. In two phases. First, the van attack in this very packed, very popular with tourists area of downtown Barcelona. And now, what is apparently a hostage situation. Police sources confirming to ABC News that 2 gunmen have holed up in a restaurant nearby, apparently a Turkish restaurant near the site of that van attack. Police are negotiating with them. They are telling people who are in that district to shelter in place, and they are telling people who are not to stay away. They are also urging people not to share images of the carnage there, because what is out there right now shows that this has been a very serious attack. They also don't want to reveal to potential attackers their own movements. That place is now swarming with police up and down those streets as they secure the area, and they believe they have cornered 2 gunmen now holed up in a restaurant near the site of the van attack.
You have a major section of one of the biggest cities in Europe under lockdown right now in a hostage situation. ABC News' Will Gretzky arrived to the scene moments after this van attack. He joins us now live. Will, what did you see?
Tom, in what is normally a very busy part of Barcelona, everybody was moving very quickly away from the scene. The plaza right near where this attack took place is usually a very busy part of the city. Some consider it the center of the city. Everybody was walking very fast, some people running up the street. The tapas restaurants along Passeig del Gracia that are normally open at this time were closing their doors, asking people who were seated outside to go inside, and hotel bellmen were doing the same, asking people to go inside and clear the streets.
Our Will Gretzky, who was reporting from Barcelona right now. If you're just joining us live, we are following a terror attack that has just occurred in Barcelona. If these pictures look familiar, they are brand new, but this attack does feel very familiar because car attacks, van attacks have been happening all across Europe, even here in the United States. Our chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross, joins me now. Brian, when you look at these pictures, when you look at the damage on that van and now the situation, the hostage situation where the driver and possibly one other man are armed and holed up in a restaurant, this looks and sounds very familiar.
That's right, Tom. There have been no claims of any responsibility, and we don't know yet who might be responsible. But it has all the trademarks of the attacks we've seen, inspired by ISIS. ISIS has sent out word to its followers, attack this way, use vehicles, use anything you can. Most recently, 13 months ago, when 86 people were killed in Nice, France on Bastille Day, when a truck ran down a major highway there. Since then, the Berlin Christmas market attack, and then 2 separate attacks on London Bridge and Westminster Bridge in London. The toll has been huge in these attacks, at least 9 or 10 major attacks said to be inspired by ISIS. They continue to send out the word, if you can kill any way you can, use a vehicle.
Yeah, when we talk about the timing, right now it's 6:56 p.m. in Barcelona. When the attack happened, it was 5 o'clock. It's an area full of tourists, full of people, and from what we've heard from eyewitnesses, this van veered off a side street and just plowed into that pedestrian plaza.
Exactly, and we can see from the pictures we've seen so far that there was no indication of any barriers that would prevent that. That's something that's now taken place in New York City in Times Square. After a number of these attacks, they've begun to put up concrete barriers, so it's not easy to come off veer off a side street and run down a pedestrian area like the Ramblas.
We do know the president, who has been dealing with very delicate situations here at home, is now dealing with this international terrorism attack. We want to go down to Cecilia Vega, who is traveling with the president right now. Cecilia?
Not the president.
Yeah, Tom, we were told just a few minutes ago that President Trump has been briefed. We're told by the White House that the Chief of Staff, General John Kelly, is aware of the situation and is keeping the president up to speed on everything that is happening there in Spain. There's no word directly from the president himself just yet, but the First Lady, in fact, is the first one to offer public comments on what's happening there in Barcelona. She just tweeted a couple of minutes ago saying, quote, thoughts and prayers to Barcelona. We do know, Tom, also that there's been a warning from the State Department this afternoon.
He's wondering if it's too soon to call them
to
alt
American
lefties.
travelers in Spain. There right now, Heather Nauert, the State Department spokeswoman, tweeting out that the State Department is closely monitoring events in Barcelona and that sending a word out to any Americans who are there to stay away.
Cecilia Vega for us. Anytime these terror attacks happen abroad, and they have happened here, in fact, we just had a car attack over the weekend, law enforcement all across the country set new precautions. I want to go to Pierre Thomas right now to tell us what some of the authorities are doing here at home.
Tom, FBI, DHS, and New York City officials are monitoring this very, very closely. Typically, the NYPD will step up patrols, have heavily armed units out in public display.
All right. So, anyways, I had to gunmen only happening in U.S. Is that sarcastic? Anyways. Wait, who? Hold on. Fucking paper towel off the thing. Yeah, it is very good to get to hang out again. Also nice to like have a little quiet time during the day. Relatively quiet. At least quiet enough to get some work done, you know? And yes, come here to undo the brainwashing is pretty much. And to pick up the threads that are lost in the chaos, yes. Example, what the fuck you said could be a demon prince. What would that mean if true? Well, I mean, Trump's basically a demon lord, so... princes and principalities. You can see a lot of previous work done on that. Might be some interesting stuff on ICR.org on that. And of course, there's the Frank Peretti novel, This Present Darkness, which I think does a good job of it. But bear in mind, we are now in an overlapping reality, unlike back in the early 90s, when the whole cloud of demons thing was happening. Yeah, the big picture can exclusively be found on this channel, it seems. I mean, Rachel Maddow's doing good work on what she works on, but there's a lot of stuff that she's just not going to go there, and I can understand that. But there's got to be an incremental way to get people to at least be exposed to that, because it happens to be true. You know. Anyways. Okay, what? Huh? Oh. Anyways. I guess I'm going to wrap it up here. Oh no, merge planes, the energy works the same, just simultaneously, and the principalities work the same, just simultaneously. And as far as what I was saying, it's basically as though all the demons have kind of picked their hosts. So there are, you know, men who are descendant of them who have basically become the prime manifestation of them and are basically their incarnations. Kind of like their awakened versions. Only they're awakened as that tendency instead of awakened as a conscious being. Anyways. So, I need to get some work done and get some rest before I wind up not being able to. So I'm going to call it a broadcast. Thanks everyone for joining me. It was damn good getting to chat with everybody and getting to cover some real subject matter again. That's like twice in the same week. How about that? And we'll be doing this more. I just don't know what time yet. So I'm going to call it 7-ish just because 7-Eleven. Malta. Yeah. Anyway. But does that affect ritual work? Makes it less important than witnessing and spreading message and trying to sell cars, you know? Anyways. You can always go check out some Grant Cardone videos. See about sales strategy. Maybe that'll help you think about how to approach people with this crap. I don't know. Anyways. So. Sweet. We got married 12, 13, 14. Mostly so I could remember it. Anyways. Thanks everybody for joining me. Y'all have a great day. Take it easy, but don't take it all. Peace. Make sure you click the like button and subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Check your subscription. Make sure you're still subscribed if you are subscribed. Make that a problem. Click the dingy bell for notifications. Y'all come back now, you hit?
Takes my pain back to breathe out of another thing. It's in my heart and baby down in my soul. You baby, you can't take it no more.
Whatever.
No, I know I'm walking out that door.
You gonna walk?
The way it treated me too many times before.
Oh man.
Don't you know you love them, baby, too? Oh, you know I want you there, I wanna be right there with you. I know I gotta keep you by my side till the day I die.
That's a long time.
'Cause baby, ecstasy is in my hands.
You should get it down.
Oh, when I'm holding yours in mine and walking in the sand. Oh, baby, you know it's
Sand would be a bracelet.
now you done and piss me off. You ain't done something you shouldn't have done. Baby, I'm mad. I'm going on. Oh, I'm going on.
I think she pissed at his nephew.